Hi, Gypsy Bus Pass here. It's been a long time since I identified with my gamer tag, but there was a time where I identified more with that moniker than my own name. It was a time when Gypsy inspired rage and respect, sometimes even awe, coming from classmates with vitamin T deficiency, also known as acute early onset rheumatoid arthritis of the thumbs. Basically, the classmates I'm describing weren't born entirely human, having the misfortune of living like some primitive life form without fully developed hands. My own name that most people thought nothing of. Its holder was an object of pity or source of sad amusement, maybe. Fat boy who barely spoke. No identity, just there, lurking at the back of a classroom. Barely real in the actual world of flesh and words spoken face to face. But on Xbox Live, that relic, which I suppose is now Game Pass or whatever the fuck, uh, I was something more. I was something greater than. While contracting tetanus on that rusty square of a map in Modern Warfare 2, or at the top of a downed, non functional escalator on Operation Metro, which was just a little too French for me and my friends, so we called it Operation Train Station in BF3. That's where you would find me, the real me, and that's where you would die probably more than I. Battlefield 6 is a lot of things. A game, I guess, but nothing is just its most basic description. My fiance isn't woman. I am not man. We being all things that exist, are somewhat fungible, subjective until a point, meanings. Think of your best friend and who it is they are truly. They represent the willing act of loyalty, unlike with family, for whom it comes more naturally. And in that relationship, loyalty isn't something you only enjoy from them. If it is, then it's likely a friendship that's going to fray into acquaintanceship at best. But loyalty will be what you show them. Through that loyalty and through the simple fact that so much of life will be lived with and experienced through a best friend, they'll be the catalyst for memories. Memories, which are those recordings of the past that we treasure and try desperately to create. That's what we are trying to fabricate with those godforsaken smartphones as we snap away selfies. Us in the foreground of the place or experience that we hope is a piece of the past that makes up our lives. Instead, we just get a picture that takes a bite out of the gigabytes on our phone. If you hadn't yet realized I'm becoming an old man, there was the obligatory Luddite flavored rant. Uh, and so a best friend is, therefore, a transcendent thing. I won't say Battlefield 6 is a transcendent thing, a meaning unto itself through all it represents. That's a little too pathetic. But I would be willing to say, and the droves that are flocking to Battlefield 6 right now can probably attest to this, that video games are. For those of us who game more than just casually or once did, uh, gaming is much more than a hobby or a medium to get a momentary fix. It reaches the level of a passion. With that passion, we find every secret a game has to offer, and we tinker with builds until we create ungodly monstrosities that not even the devs could have predicted, though they gave us the tools to create the Frankensteinian abomination. We lost sleep at those relics of the past, midnight releases, or just playing into the night. The screens are midnight oil. The last one, a midnight release that is, that I went to was for Advanced Warfare, which is kind of hard to believe right now. In retrospect, it's kind of hard to say what's the biggest disappointment. That game's multiplayer, finding out Kevin Spacey was potentially more of a freak in real life than his character in American Beauty, or Kevin Atlas Spacey's role in its campaign. At least that's what I think his name was in that game, Atlas. That right there, the memory of a modicum of joy that came when I withheld my respects and saw Mr. Atlas Spacey fall into the pits of Tartars because he turned me into a paraplegic. Poetic, really, the stump that he created that probably turned the pervert on, got him killed in the end. Yeah, that and so many memories besides. A USP 1v3 clutch on Crash Search and Destroy. I had ammo for the M16, but I just knew my buddy would lose it if I had pulled it off. A nuclear on Downhill in Black Ops 2. I'm pretty sure my only nuclear on a DLC map. And then there's countless cinematic moments in Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3. So a passion which led to those priceless memories, passions and memories which form a core part of our identities. Many of us in our late 20s, early 30s have set aside our early passions to an extent. Adulthood demands subordinating them and self for responsibilities and others. For me, I thought the passion had to be killed. Video games, particularly first person shooters and just shooters in general, were my deepest. In them, I found my identity and what I was good at least as a high schooler. Through them, I had something to talk about and a shared interest that I used to make friends. But starting in college and more acutely after graduating, as the realities of working and adulthood started to firmly assert themselves, I felt the passion had to die. Not all at once, but I gradually started cutting back playtime because I simply did not have the time or was choosing to give into the nagging voice in my head, constantly growing louder as I grew older, saying it was a waste of time. My come to Jesus moment was right on the cusp of entering my mid 20s. I was still trying to force myself into the burgeoning trend of battle royales. Fucking hated Fortnite. Every match felt like getting pounded on by Bob the Builder, but Call of Duty's first attempt to capitalize on the genre, Blackout, seemed like it could have been my speed. After a few matches of quick flameouts, I crashed out, yelling at the TV, slamming the controller on the closest solid object I could find. An ugly sight, no doubt about that. As I cooled down, looking down at what close to 2 decades ago my grandmother called baby fat, what had turned to just plain old fat out of nowhere, uh, I felt ridiculous, pathetic. I'm gonna lose weight was my first thought. My second was, I'm done with this shit. On both counts, I eventually followed through. I became a responsible adult, slowly but surely. Canceled Xbox Live. Video games, aside from the occasional single player game, were relegated to the past. Memories. I'm not sure what came over me with the Battlefield 6 beta and now the full game. Maybe I got absorbed in the discourse of Battlefield being so back and the endless stream of COD is dead, bringing me back to the Infinite Warfare and Battlefield 1 days, the latter making for what is probably the last exceptional shooter in either of those franchises. Um, Maybe it's the flood of sentimental comments on YouTube talking about how this iteration brings them back to the older games in the franchise when the games in life were simpler and great. I think we can gain much by cutting back or cutting out video games entirely. Richer in person relationships are likely to come, and skills applicable to the careers we need to pursue to become well adjusted adults. But when you love video games as much as some of us do, you lose something too. A passion dies, and a piece of your identity goes with it. Maybe you find something better to replace it, but it's hard as hell to completely lose something you love. If you lose a best friend, grow apart, whatever it may be, you don't replace them after that. Sure, new people come into your life and they fill a void to a degree, but you'll remember the good times with them eventually. Those pop into your head out of nowhere. Even just saying that out loud just made me think of one. And yeah, you'll feel the pain of what was lost. There are things in my life now that I would unequivocally give up video games for. My fiance and when we're one day married, our children. It's not even a question. However, it's rare that we have to totally give up the things we love for who we love. I mean, maybe the fentanyl zombies need to give up what they love, but we can debate whether addiction and love are synonymous some other time. At this time, fairly comfortable in a career, engaged to a wonderful woman, I can afford to introduce a little of the old passion into my life. I have actually, and oh God, is it really freaking good to be back. Happy gaming to anyone who's listened this far, and try not to break too much outside of the virtual world. Bye.